ProModel Corporation Simulation Solutions, better than ever. Hello, my name is Bruce Gladwin. I'm the Senior Vice President of Commercial Products Group at ProModel Corporation, and I'll be your presenter for this session. An agenda for the session consists of history and product timeline of ProModel Corporation products, and then we'll jump into the overviews of each product because this is a shortened or condensed version for the virtual presentation. I will not be able to show live uses of the software, but I will discuss the purpose of each tool, who the tool is designed to be used by, and the value of each tool. Then we'll focus a little bit on the ProModel academic program, including a new version of our textbook, Simulation Using ProModel, and then we'll talk about the road ahead. ProModel Corporation is one of the few simulation companies that can claim to have been in existence for over 30 years. Back in 1988, BYU professor Charlie Harrell introduced the first version of ProMod 1.0, which was designed specifically to be used on a PC. ProModel for Windows was released in 1993 with sister products MedModel and ServiceModel, which were for the healthcare and service industries respectively, being released in 1995. Through the 2000s, ProModel focused on making its products easier to use. And so Process Simulator was released, which is a Visio-based tool that is mainly a fill-in-the-blank approach versus a simulation language approach. Continuing on in the 2010 decade, a later release of Process Simulator included a professional version and a material handling edition. And then our most recent product is the ProModel AutoCAD edition. In addition to these commercially available tools, we also created several custom developed solutions for specific markets, including BigBear.ai and FutureFlow RX. Product overviews. ProModel continues to update and enhance our existing products while developing new products for special industries. In this section, I'll be covering our flagship language-based applications like ProModel and MedModel, and I'll be covering our simulator-based applications like Process Simulator and Enterprise Portfolio Simulator, and then our special industry products including FutureFlow RX and BigBear.ai. Our flagship product, ProModel, has been around in one form or another since 1988. This software development kit allows a modeler to develop very complex and customized solutions. The building blocks for developing a model in ProModel simulation include the locations, like workstations or machines, plus the entities, which represent the parts or the objects that flow through the system across the machines and workstations, and then arrivals of those entities into the system. That could be individual items or could be batches. And then the actual process flow, which consists of the operation instructions and the routings. In this case, we have a major producer of industrial milling and drilling bits that needed to optimize the layout of their future state plant. So we developed a model with all the routings for all the potential parts that would flow through the system. And as they flowed through the system, we kept track of the distance traveled from workstation to workstation. Then we used the extensive data output capabilities of ProModel to create an Excel-based layout optimization tool that minimizes the total part flow travel distance for any given mix and volume of products. The result was, in this case, we were able to reduce by about 20% the total part move distance simply by moving the machines from one place to another on the layout. So ProModel is a powerful general-purpose simulation tool for complex modeling. It allows the power user to design models quickly and easily, but also to interact with tools like Excel or other post-processing applications to create customized solutions. The sister tool to ProModel is MedModel for the healthcare industry. MedModel provides the same custom development platform for users in the healthcare industry to create their own applications specific to healthcare. In the example to the right, MedModel was used to create a customized GI clinic simulator to minimize total patient length of stay in the clinic. The types of inputs that were fed into the model included everything from the types of staff, like physicians, nurses, technicians, etc., to specific equipment preferences by specific doctors, and also those doctors' schedules and the rooms that they were scheduled to use, and the accompanying nurses and technicians' schedules as well. Several custom output tables and charts and graphs were created for this customized solution, but one of the most interesting was this type of a chart here, showing specific times when each room was supposed to be in use, so the scheduled time for each room shown by the black skinny bar at the bottom, and then a detailed view of what actually took place during each procedure in each room. So you can see that we tracked things like setup time, time of the scope in until the scope was out, and cleanup time for the room and reprocessing of the equipment as well. This type of chart was created using ProModel's COM interface or the ActiveX capabilities to interact directly with Excel and thereby be able to see the inefficiencies in each room. So just like ProModel for manufacturing systems, MedModel is a powerful general purpose simulation tool for power users in the healthcare industries to be able to create custom applications. The next product is Process Simulator Professional. This tool is a powerful Visio-based simulator for those who are new or occasional users of simulation. It has the same types of modeling elements as ProModel or MedModel, except instead of workstations or machines, we're looking at activities that entities flow through in order to perform the process. We also allow resources to be defined, and there are several built-in rules for things like batching or setting availability factors to represent times when activities and resources are unavailable. The idea with Process Simulator is that it's very much fill in the blank. So as you can see here, there are fields here for capacity, for buffers, input buffers, output buffers, for processing times. You can even put processing times in for multiple entity types. So if you have multiple entity types, process time can be a function of the type of entity. And then we can also perform shift calendars or put resources onto shift calendars so that resources and activities are only available at certain times. For those users who need to go beyond the fill-in-the-blank approach, Process Simulator provides much of the same simulation language as the ProModel and MedModel tools, but none of that is required to develop models. So in this case, you see here a complex operation where we need to perform several different captures of a resource. We capture the resource, we use another resource for a period of time, we free the resource, we capture a third resource, we use different teams of labor for periods of time, and then we free a final resource. So you can go far beyond just fill in the blank and perform some intermediate to fairly complex models using Process Simulator. Once again, it's for the new user or the user who picks up the simulation tool occasionally, as opposed to the power user who uses the full capabilities of the simulation language in ProModel and MedModel. In addition to the standard Process Simulator Professional version, there is a material handling version, which was released to allow a user to have conveyors and path networks that would define how a worker or a vehicle like, let's say, an AGV or a forklift would travel from one place to another. Conveyors can be either accumulating or they can be transport. So an accumulating conveyor would be like a roller or gravity feed belt, or a transport conveyor would be just like a solid belt, whereas if the front entity, the first entity in line stops, then every entity behind it would have to stop. In this edition of the software, we even provide node logic, which allows you to define complex rules for controlling resources or for statistics gathering. The next product is ProModel AutoCAD Edition. This is ProModel's newest product, which allows a user to build models directly in AutoCAD. It provides the same ProModel simulation language for model development and it allows for quick and easy export to Autodesk's Inventor product for 3D modeling. As you see here, many of the same elements are defined, such as locations, entities, conveyors, and process flows, and you can even create logic similar to in ProModel directly. Similar to Process Simulator are the many fill-in-the-blank dialogues that allows you to quick and easily get a model up and running. Once your model is defined, you can create, just like in ProModel or MedModel or Process Simulator, you can create scenarios and you can view the outputs directly from AutoCAD. Once your model is completely developed, a simple click will create that model in the Inventor and allow you to do 3D simulation. So it is important to note that in order to do the 3D simulation, you have to define 3D assets or blocks in AutoCAD to represent your locations, entities, and resources. You will also then need to adjust the Z-axis settings for entity placement on all processing stations. For example, in this picture here, the Z-axis represents the distance from the floor to where the entity resides in each location, such as this table here. Or on this cart, the entities reside at multiple layers. Once you've defined those Z-axis settings, then you simply run your model in 3D. The exciting news is that this 3D representation is much easier and actually faster to develop than our previous 3D simulator tool. So this uses the Autodesk Forge Viewer to actually run the animation, and as they continue to make updates to the Forge Viewer, then those updates will simply become part of your experience in using the 3D version of simulation for Inventor. A very nice thing about ProModel, MedModel, Process Simulator, and the ProModel AutoCAD Edition is that they all use the same output viewer, which allows you to define the same types of charts, tables, graphs, and any customized statistics representations using the output viewer. The next product is our Enterprise Portfolio Simulator, or EPS. EPS is a strategic resource capacity planning tool that allows you to look at a portfolio of projects. So think of multiple Microsoft project files that represent a number of projects, maybe Six Sigma projects going on in your business, for example, and maybe those projects, some of them will continue on, some of them will be discontinued, and when a project is discontinued, the resources involved in that project will be transferred to other projects. So EPS allows us to look at the survivability of projects that fail or that terminate earlier than planned and reassign those resources. And in so doing, we can determine the most profitable portfolio of projects. The outputs from EPS show many things, but the planned versus expected project start and finish dates is one of the key outputs. So in this chart here, we see the green representing for each of the projects in the portfolio, the planned start and finish date under perfect conditions with no resource capacity constraints, while the blue bars represent for each of the same projects the actual expected start and finish dates under those resource constraints and variability. EPS is completely fill in the blank. You fill in the information that represents your project, and you select the projects that you want in that portfolio, and you run your experiments, and you can then exchange certain projects for other projects and see which is the most profitable portfolio of projects. The next product I'll talk about is one of our custom developed applications for the healthcare industry. This is called FutureFlow RX, and it is an operational and strategic planning tool for hospital systems, whether it's one hospital or multiple hospitals in a system. And it uses near real-time snapshots of current system state plus historical data to predict short-term metrics like bed capacity and staffing constraints. It can also be used for longer-term strategic modeling. On the left, the inputs come from the current state of the hospital or hospitals, including actual patients, how long patients have been there, what units they're in, what their situation is, when they're expected to be discharged, etc. Plus virtual patients from admit, discharge, and transfer databases that would show what do we expect in the short term to be inputs into the system as far as new patients. Now, those patients could be coming from other units on the current hospital, or they could be coming from other hospitals in the network, or even from outside of the network. Those represent the inputs to the system. And then we define a digital twin of the system in terms of the facility or facilities, the types of staff that are present to care for the patients, the care level units. In other words, how many units do we have of each specialty? And then that information goes into a discrete event, med model, basically engine, and allows us to define what if scenario. The outputs are going to be things like expected census and capacity information, staffing requirements, and even financial aspects of patients being admitted or being transferred from one facility to another and how that affects the hospital system's financials. So FutureFlow RX is an exciting new application that allows hospital planners to do a better job understanding capacity needs and what's likely going to happen in their system based on the challenges of today, including COVID. The next customized application is called Shipyard AI, and that addresses the unique concerns and challenges of shipyard planners by frequently optimizing the loading of shipyard resources across current and prospective scenarios. As you can imagine, a shipyard is an incredibly complex project or sequence of projects that are going on, and the bringing together of many components, very large components, creates challenges in terms of space planning. Shipyard AI allows us to look at the construction sequences of a ship, the constraints in those construction sequences, and the information that is existing in the company's ERP systems, and to bring that into a simulation engine, like a Pro Model discrete event simulation engine, and consider all the constraints in that process in terms of space, labor, the facility constraints beyond laydown space, so things like number of processing stations you have there, and even heavy lifting resources like cranes on the site. The tool then allows us to define the business rules that will control which units will go to which space and which ones have priority, and you'll be able to define scenarios that looks at the likelihood of, let's say, different ships coming on as new projects. And the outputs are going to be things like your timelines of when the different components, the hull components, will reside in different areas of the facility. Also, the timeline of when the large lifting resources are required. And then just an overall capacity chart showing how much capacity in a building or set of buildings is in use versus how much is available over time. And then finally, as changes are proposed in the scenarios, what is the likely impact upon the schedule? So Shipyard AI is a pre-configured model that provides these inputs and these outputs to planners in the shipyard industry so that they don't have to create their own models. We've done all the heavy lifting for them, and they can simply configure Shipyard AI to their current situation. For the academic world, ProModel continues to offer low-cost or no-cost software and materials to professors who wish to teach or perform research using ProModel simulation products. In fact, in January of 2022, we have a new version of our simulation using ProModel textbook with new chapters, both theory and lab, on design of simulation experiments. This is available from Cognella Publishing Incorporated. So the road ahead for ProModel is basically to stay the course. We want to continue providing the best products, training, and consulting that's available in the industry, and provide products and materials for our professors who want to partner with us in teaching ProModel materials in the universities. In everything we do, we seek to help our customers make better decisions faster. Thank you for your attention. This concludes ProModel Corporation's Simulation Solutions Better Than Ever.